Hello everyone. I was watching a channel called Miniature Wargaming Warriors the other day. I think the guy's name is Ken, and he put up a challenge for people to invent or make some scatter terrain made out of simple items and so on. And it happened to coincide with my assembling another foreground model for the Old West, which was the livery stables, and it's a really nice model, but it looks far too pristine and clean, and I thought it could do with a lot of kind of mess and straw and stuff like that on the floor, but I didn't want to permanently glue it to the model, make a sort of permanent change to the model. So what I came up with was this scatter terrain, which is meant to represent kind of what you'd muck out of a stable floor, and I'm quite pleased with it. It's worked out all right, and you could literally just scatter this onto your tabletop, and I mean, it would do for any wargaming period that involves horses, really. Right the way through, even to the modern age. I mean, as a child, I can remember the milk and coal and so on were all delivered by horse and cart. So it's applicable to a lot of different periods. So I'm quite pleased with this, but I've got some ideas on how to improve on it still further. So I'm going to make some in front of the camera and show you how I went about making it. Okay, now this does get messy, so make sure you've got lots of paper towels and water and so on, and the areas covered in newspaper to protect the surfaces and so on. And you don't need very much at all, really. What we start with, or what you'll need, is some PVA glue. Now this glue I've had a long time, and I bought it because I was assured it dried clear, and it doesn't. It dries to that kind of bilious sort of yellowy brown colour that you've just seen. So it's an ideal way of getting rid of it without actually throwing the bottle away. But I am going to do a little bit of an experiment as well and make a couple using PVA glue that dries clear. So we'll come back to that in a moment. And then you'll also need an old paintbrush that you're about to throw away, decorating paintbrush. And I've mixed in some commercially obtained static grass, straw coloured static grass. You'll need some paints that you're not particularly bothered about, so I've got quite a lot of these sort of deco art. I think they're called Cracker, I can't remember, Cracker something in America, but these sort of cheap things you can buy in craft stores just to waste the paint. And I'm gonna, in addition to what I did before, I'm gonna make use of these sort of desiccant kind of granules. Now you can get these they're often put inside packaging to keep items free of moisture. So things like trainers and things like that inside the shoebox, you'll often find a sachet. And if you cut them open, sometimes they're a gel, but occasionally they will be these little kind of granules. And I thought they would make good kind of horse droppings. So I've used a few of those, but I did try and break them up a little bit so that they're not completely spherical. with a pair of pliers. So I've got a bowl of them here, and some of them are crushed up, not all of them. They're very kind of awkward and difficult to get a grip on. They tend to pop away and go all over the place. But even the ones that remain completely spherical, they're going to sink into the glue anyway, so then you're not going to see the whole entire kind of surface of them. And yeah, so the first thing you want to do is prepare some material. So I've got the horse droppings prepared, and I've cut lots of ends off of the paintbrush. So the easiest way I've found of doing that, if you literally cut across, it can be very resistant. So just sort of separate out a few of the bristles, and you want to cut off about less than half a centimetre, maybe it doesn't matter if some of them are up to a centimetre long. And again, they do tend to fly about all over the place, but when you built up a good enough kind of amount of that, then you can mix in some of the static grass. Again, you don't need a vast amount of this. That amount's probably plenty for this. Mix it all up so that it's sort of evenly distributed throughout. And then this is where it starts to get messy. So I'm just going to squirt in a little bit of paint into this pot. It's nearly at the end now, so it might take a while before it emerges from the probably enough of that one. So that is golden brown. And we've got another one here, sandstone grey. Mix some of that in. And you don't want it too thick, so I'm going to put quite a lot of water in that as well. And then just stir it all together so that you get a bit of colour on everything. I found it's not a problem if you leave a lot of the bristles looking their original kind of darkish black colour, because as straw rots and so on, gets mildewed, it does tend to have a very dark colour, so that's not a problem at all if you still see the original colour of the bristles. And then this is where my experiment's going to begin as well, because I'm going to use some of these silica granules. So this, I'm going to put some burnt umber in here, because this is an experiment. I'm not exactly sure how they'll take the paint. I need a bit of water as well. Oh yeah, it's looking pretty shitty. That's actually I quite like that effect already. Looks pretty unpleasant. Right, okay, then all you have to do, you've got your work surface. I use a sort of an old piece of plywood, square piece of plywood, and I've coated it in cling film. And we're going to just make a few kind of pads of PVA glue. And this will sort of spread and it will thin out at the edges. Like so. And then, as I say, I'm just going to do a little bit of experimenting of my own, because I want to see what it looks like if you actually have a clear kind of base rather than a sort of horrible kind of yucky sort of yellow colour. I'm running out of PVA glue, but I've got some more that's going to be delivered today, so yeah, I think I'll just do the one of the clear stuff. Right, now all I'm going to do now is just take, using some tweezers, just take a certain amount of that and dab it into the wet glue. Put some on that clear stuff in case I run out before I get to it. I didn't make enough of the actual straw material, so probably won't have enough to go on all of these. Maybe I can do some just of horse poo on their own. I don't know, we'll see how we go. It's going to be about all I can get out of it. Right, and then we've got the actual granules of silica. So I think the only way I'm going to be able to do this is with my fingers, so this is, as I say, this is where it's going to get messy. I'm not going to need a lot of them. Right, I think that's going to be enough. Right, there we go, just giving my fingers a wash before I carry on. So now it's just a matter of letting this dry, and it does take, even without all the watery paint, it will take about 24 hours to dry on one side, and then you've got to kind of turn it over. So I'm going to leave that in a sunny spot somewhere to dry out as quickly as possible, and be back to you in about 24 hours time. Right, so this is 24 hours later, and I know from the previous batch I did that although they're dry to the touch on the upper surface, once I peel them off the cling film, they're going to still be sticky on the undersurface. So all I'm going to do at the moment is just turn them over, leave them. It wouldn't take 24 hours, but I'll leave them another 24 hours before I work on them anymore, drying on the other side. I can already see that the experiment with the silicon kind of granules, silica granules, is sort of partial success, but the paint that I used was too dilute, and they've dried sort of so they still look quite transparent. So that's no problem. All I'll do is touch them up with a bit of paint afterwards. And what I did with the previous ones as well is I sort of nibbled away around the edges with a nail clipper, just to cut away a lot of that featureless sort of dried glue, so that you've just got sort of piles of matted straw now. So I'm quite pleased with that, but I like the look of these darker ones with the sort of brown stain in them. So anyway, let's have a go at peeling these off. They should come off quite easily. There we go. And as you can see, probably they are still sticky on the underside. So as I say, at the moment, all I'm going to do, that's the dry side. I'm just going to turn them over and leave them to dry for another day. Obviously, if I'd just done this without the cling film onto the wood, they would have stuck to the wood quite thoroughly, and you wouldn't have been able to do this peeling process. And this is the kind of shape that I'm really going to pare a lot of that off with nail clippers once it's dried thoroughly. So there we go, that's it for the moment, and I'll be back to you in another 24 hours. Right, there we go then. I didn't even wait 24 hours, I was a bit too impatient. I added a bit more paint to the actual poo itself, simply because it was a little bit too dilute, what I'd originally used on it. So the sort of silicon was showing through on that, and I trimmed around the edges, and at the front you can see the stuff that has just dried, but in the background I've got the stuff that I did on a previous occasion a couple of days ago, and I'm pretty happy with that as a sort of farmyard manure stroke stable floor deposits and so on. It just adds that a little extra bit. I mean, you know, how many sort of westerns do you watch where there's ever any horse poo in them? I can't think of any. I've seen some westerns where they deliberately show buffalo chips because the prairie wagon trains didn't have any wood as fuel, so they would use dried up buffalo chips as fuel. I've seen that portrayed in westerns and things, but never seen a western high street where there's any sign of any horse poo whatsoever. And like I said earlier, any war game that involves any sort of horses at all, then you could make some of these and just throw them around as a bit of scatter, especially where horses are bridled or in a field or in a stables or something like that. And if you wanted to make, do without the poo, but if you wanted to make things like this just to put on the floor of dungeons in medieval periods or courtyards of castles and so on where horses are coming and going, I mean, it's ideal. So there we go. That's my my idea for some cheap and easy to make out of household items and so on scatter terrain. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.